As educators, how do you explain or what's your understanding of students who underachieve, are disengaged, become delusioned, isolate themselves, and withdraw or drop out? For decades, it's been reported that the availability and size of classes, curriculum, and funding are the root of the problem. Yet we all know students who thrive in the face of these problems, who achieve great personal satisfaction and high academic achievement, thrive despite family breakdowns, economic hardships, and even personal trauma. So what separates the students who persevere and show resilience from those who do not? About 7 years ago, I made a startling discovery. This discovery changed my thinking about my personal relationships and profoundly changed my thinking on the importance of behaviors and relationship functioning in places and in institutions such as colleges and universities. There is clear and convincing evidence that positive relationship functioning in education predicts higher test scores, greater student engagement, higher retention, and fewer referrals for emotional and academic help. Advancing research in neurobiology can clearly show us how, in the very circuitry of the brain, relationship functioning is the very foundation of academic success. The theme of this conference is As Others See Us, and what I'm suggesting to you is that there is a different perspective at play here. It's not just how we are seen by those around us, but how we see others and ourselves from the inside out. This different perspective is called attachment theory or attachment. There is no debate. We learn best from those who care about us and from those we care about. Attachment and research have convincingly taught me that individuals, i.e. students, are much more than the sum of their behaviors, and that our understanding of them and our relationships with them rely on much more than evaluating their coursework, test scores, and their GPA. Attachment suggests that knowledge of a student begins from the inside out, and that such developing knowledge is fundamental to our relationships with them. As educators, you've come to understand the connection between positive student-teacher relationships, socio-emotional development, and learning. But little is taught to educators about how these connections are formed, maintained, and that they can be repaired. Every single university and college knows the test scores, grades, and GPA of their students. What I'm arguing here is that from these scores, or the known outcomes, you are accustomed to working backwards to describe and view a student's success at learning. Then from that influences the way the students think, react, and behave. Now, while this perspective might drive student behavior, it's not the principal driver of learning, and its perspective is from the outside in, not the inside out. Let me suggest the opposite view, or an alternative perspective, one that looks to our earliest relationships first and attempts to describe certain early behaviors of how infants relate to their primary caregivers. Then we can extrapolate forward and see how these behavioral patterns manifest themselves and play out in students, and how these patterns set the student on a sturdy or fragile path to learn and thrive. This view is from the inside out. The concept of attachment describes from our earliest beginnings the formation and quality of relationships or enduring connections made between individuals, particularly during times of stress, uncertainty, and fear. Attachment focuses on the unconscious models we all carry around in our heads, which operate automatically and determine how we understand the things around us and how we take action. Along with everything else, these mental models are brought into schools and contribute to a student's academic success, or they can hijack their performance and destabilize them for long periods of time. After more than 70 years of research and study, attachment is widely considered one of the most influential empirically based theories of human behavior and emotional regulation within the social environment. Extending throughout one's lifetime, the predictive power of attachment can help teachers and administrators understand the implications of early life experiences to later outcomes that include a student's well-being, learning, retention, and overall academic performance. Here's a simple example. Researchers in a long-running attachment study in Minnesota were able to predict with 80% accuracy 3.5-year-olds who would go on to graduate from high school. Attachment comes from the inside out, not the outside in. Attachment offers tools for making meaningful relationships possible, even under the most trying circumstances and with the most challenging students. Attachment is so strong it overrides the student's higher cognitive processes and becomes the primary motivator of their behavior. From the book Attachment in Middle Childhood, the authors talk about children that will devote energy and resources in an attempt to relieve the uncertainty, confusion, and fear they may be experiencing. The focus on managing this fear inhibits socio-emotional development and drains energy from learning and exploration. So how does the understanding of attachment help educators connect school relationships, learning, and academic success? And what do attachment relationships and interactions look like in schools? Attachment is defined by 4 characteristics. Number 1, and the primary feature, is establishing and maintaining physical or psychological proximity to a caregiver, that special person who is considered stronger, wiser, and more capable. Number 2, the attachment figure or primary caregiver acts as a safe haven or a source of comfort and security for the student, so the student experiences diminished anxiety or relief from the confusing or threatening circumstances. Number 3, the attachment figure serves as a secure base from which the child or student explores the physical and social world. For our purposes here, that means taking calculated risks and engaging in the mastery of new subject matter. And number 4, the student experiences increased anxiety during unwanted or prolonged separation from the attachment figure. Students whose needs for proximity have been met by attachment figures with comfort and support come to expect these types of responses from other relationship partners that include teachers. When needs for proximity is discouraged or goes unmet, students experience attachment insecurity and turn to other, less adaptive coping strategies. These individual differences in coping strategies are called attachment styles, and we can conceptualize and measure these styles along 2 dimensions, anxiety and avoidance. Anxiety is represented by the horizontal line, with low anxiety on the left to high anxiety on the right. Attachment anxiety is associated with continuous worries about rejection and abandonment and the flooding of emotions, making for a chaotic stance by the student. Avoidance is represented by the vertical axis, low avoidance at the top, higher avoidance as you move down. Attachment avoidance refers to the reluctance to be involved with a relationship partner and the suppression or denial of emotions. This leads to a rigid, narrow stance by the student. And as you might suspect, each quadrant represents a different attachment style. The upper left, or red quadrant, represents secure attachment. In school, securely attached students have positive feelings about themselves and others, and they can direct their mental and physical resources towards exploration and the challenges of the classroom. Should they run into difficulties, they feel confident they can solve the problem or gain support and help from their teacher or attachment figure. These students show resilience and understand and balance the need for autonomy and the reliance on others. Persistence, determination, and resilience are all hallmarks of secure attachment. The upper right or green quadrant represents an insecure, anxious, or preoccupied attachment style. In school, anxious students constantly worry about whether their teachers will be there for support. For these students, their relationship is more important than producing or learning. And though they may in fact produce, they often don't retain the information after being tested. Their success at seeking and maintaining proximity to the attachment figure has been experienced as erratic, meaning the caregiver is sometimes available and sometimes not. This causes the student to remain in a heightened state of anxiety. Experienced internally, the threat of disappointing, misstepping, or not knowing makes the student constantly strive to cover every eventuality. Have I, did I, will I, and what if are questions that dominate their thinking and conversations. Impossible to repress entirely, their chronic anxiety can lead to excessive feelings of guilt, agitation and aggressiveness, and angry outbursts that seek not attention, as most commonly thought, but connection to the teacher or attachment figure. For these students, establishing proximity or connection to the teacher, even at the cost of negative consequences, is better than nothing. In the lower two quadrants are attachment styles that result from a caregiver's chronic failure to provide support and help, which the student experiences as being unworthy of care and support and as emotional and physical rejection. The lower left or blue quadrant represents an insecure dismissing student. These students have not experienced significant others as reliable or helpful to them and attempt to relieve their fear and confusion by controlling their surroundings and their relationships. They avoid interactions with others as much as possible, except when it's to their advantage, and may even target others for bullying or feign neediness or friendship as a means of exercising or maintaining their control. Also, these students have an overinflated view of themselves. Compulsively independent or self-reliant, they do not trust the teacher or anyone else, so they have difficulty asking for help. The last quadrant on the lower right is called insecure or disorganized attachment. An insecure, fearful student has a negative image of themselves and of all others. These students want to have close relationships with others, but are afraid of being hurt or rejected as they have so many times in the past. These students feel less capable than their classmates and are likely to fear that everyone around them, including the teacher, knows this and will reject them. Since their work takes precedence over their relationships, they may perform well on assignments and tests. However, their isolation and avoidance of relationships and interactions is not recognized, nor does it get addressed. Valuable in today's climate, evidence suggests these students appear to be the most susceptible as targets of bullying. In the extreme, these students have been the victims of early childhood trauma, and even more than the other insecure students, are prone to deal with their fear using anger and even violence. These disorganized students provide the greatest challenge to teachers and to schools. So why should colleges and universities care about attachment? Because you are the recipient of these attachment styles. The interconnectedness and interactions of students, teachers, and administrators are all experienced in a cumulative fashion from the earliest beginnings. These shape and sharpen our mental models, our emotions, and our actions. Since we know that attachment extends from the cradle to the grave, attachment style behaviors do not end with an acceptance letter or the first day of class. These are your future students. This is what you can expect to see in your students and what those students are seeing in you as educators and in your institutions, all from the inside out. Since time is short, let me leave you with 3 takeaways. First, every single person and every institution represented here has an attachment style, a way or style of relating to important others. 2, understanding your own attachment style can help you not to act in ways that confirm an insecure student's mental model. And 3, the climate of your school or institution and the student-teacher relationship share a reciprocal association. And does that climate enhance or undermine the student-teacher relationship? Attachment is not merely an exercise. It's an important approach and perspective different from traditional views of professional development, student engagement, and learning. In a secure environment, students should be presented with a balance between the demands made of them and the resources they can access to meet those demands. Most importantly, these resources may be social or even emotional in the form of accessibility, support, and safety from teachers, peers, and the university or college. While this type of security may look like an added bonus or extras, the research is unequivocal. Students derive much of their learning, performance, and success from it. Thank you.